All right, we are here. We're kicking the year off strong. We've got people flowing in and ready to start our first event of 2025 with MSK Innovations. I'm TJ Halverson at the DeAngelis Group, executive search firm serving the musculoskeletal industry. Today is our first event of 2025 with three innovators presenting their investment opportunities to a wonderful panel that we have today. The panel today consists of Chris Lyons, Drew DeAngelis, and Chance Leonard. Now, before I introduce our panelists and give them a chance to introduce themselves and jump into our first presentation, quick disclaimer, we are not a broker dealer nor an investment advisor. This venue is for informational purposes only and not to be considered investment advice. Please conduct your own due diligence prior to making any investment. Now to our panel, I'll let Chris Lyons introduce himself first. Chris.
Yeah, thank you, TJ. So I'm Chris Lyons, been in the medical device industry, musculoskeletal, for about 36 years now, and presently run consulting firm Southern Metrics Consulting, along with I'm a partner in Biotech Exec, which is a fractional C-suite organization as well. And everything that I do now is focused on the sell side of M&A and all the strategy and business lifecycle management that entails along the way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris, for being here. One of
Absolutely.
our standing panelists. Drew, quick introduction.
Drew DeAngelis with the DeAngelis Group, and also with TJ, co-founder of MSK Innovations, and new owner of Orthopaedics this week. Shout out to Robin Young. And I got Chris beat by 1 year. I'm 37 years and counting in the musculoskeletal industry. In the last 25 years has been spent all on the executive search side with earlier stage, small to mid-size orthopedic and spine implant companies. So it's a privilege to be here as a panelist today. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited. And last but not least, Chance Leonard.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you, fellow panelists and participants. My name is Chance Leonard, and I currently serve as Chief Executive Officer of Genesis Innovation Group, which is a medical device development organization. Basically, in a sense, a one-stop shop for entrepreneurs, idea creators, and medical device manufacturers. And so this is my 30th year. I guess I'm the baby of the group in the medical device industry. And I've spent the majority of my time in the subspecialties of fracture management and complex joint reconstruction, most recently departing skeletal dynamics, and before that with Zimmer and Synthes. So great to be here. Good to see everyone.
Thanks for joining us, Chance. All right, so to kick things off, our first presenter, we have Jamal Rushdy from Arcuro Medical. Jamal, take it away.
Great. Thanks, TJ. And hello, everybody. We'll go ahead and share my presentation. And is that showing?
We got it.
Great. Excellent. Well, thanks for everyone who's joining and listening. Jamal Rushdy. I guess slightly less experience. I have 28 years in medical device. Been CEO of Arcuro for about 6 months. But been on the board since about inception, and it's just a great company founded in Israel by two co-founders with excellent experience in sports medicine. So let's dive into it. Similar disclaimers and what we're going after. So we're focused on joint preservation, and in particular, we're looking at treating the 2 million procedures a year that treat meniscus tears. Now, the challenge is over 75% of these meniscus tear treatments are meniscectomies, where they remove some or all of the meniscus. The problem is it's about a 3 times increase in the risk of getting joint replacement. So what's been happening in the industry, in the clinical world, is a trend to save the meniscus. And if we can save the meniscus, we can preserve the joint and advance our mission. So a little bit into the market, first of all, it's growing quite a bit, up to $1 billion by some estimates over the next several years. And what's driving it? So 3 things have happened. The first is clinical evidence. In the past, it was believed that meniscus tears don't heal, and also that meniscectomies are just fine. Well, it turns out meniscectomies are not just fine. You remove a lot of the shock absorber of the meniscus, and it does cause osteoarthritis. The other thing that's happened is the data is coming out that meniscus tears do heal when you repair them, and if you can repair them correctly. Health economically, it's much better to repair the meniscus because you don't have the downstream problems of osteoarthritis and the costs associated with it. And then finally, industries behind it, not just the companies, but also the surgeons innovating into new ways of treating the meniscus. So we're seeing this big shift, and how fast it grows and how big it grows is really going to be how quickly does it go from 70 to 80% meniscus removal to closer to 50-50. And that's what we're seeing in the industry. So if it's such a good reason to repair the meniscus, what are the remaining challenges? Well, there are some challenges. The first is intraoperative. So anywhere between 12 and 30%, there's lots of data sources out there. During the procedure, there's some sort of problem with what's called all-inside meniscus repair, which is where surgeons are focused on. Now, this could be failure of the implant to deploy properly, to tension properly, or the implant actually pulling out. Post-operatively, when you have to tie knots, those knots can creep or are set in the joint. Sometimes the PEEK plastic implants that go with some of these devices can migrate into the joint. And then you can also have cheese wire and cutting through of the meniscus. So these are both challenges that are real within the industry. So our team has come up with a great solution. It's called the SuperBall, and what you see there on the top left is the device, and on the bottom left is the actual implant. So it's an all suture device. There's no PEEK, there's no plastic in there. The connecting thread between the two, it's actually a mesh, so it doesn't cut through the meniscus. There's no knot tying, so it's got a very unique way of securing the implant. And most importantly, it's an anatomic tensioning system. And it's a bit technical, but this mimics the gold standard in meniscus surgery, which is an inside-out technique. And I'll get to why that's important in just a bit. In fact, just right now. So on the left, what you see is this is an arthroscopic picture of a competitive device. And what looks like a little bit of a grain of rice there in the black circle, that's an implant pulling out through where it's just been put. It's not supposed to be there. That's a plastic implant. And the reason is when most of these devices are tensioned, in fact, all of them except for ours, you tension the closing device right back through the hole that you just put in. Ours is the only device where you're tensioning from the outside. You're leaving the needle in, and it's got an integrated knot pusher, and you're actually closing and reducing anatomically. So you're not pulling the implant back through the hole. And also, more importantly, you're leaving the meniscus in the anatomic position it's supposed to be. You're not pulling it right back through the center. And this happens to be very critical, and it's one of the factors that leads to a less than 2% complication rate of our device relative to the competition. So that's going very, very well. And we're also excited to say that our next indication we're going after is rotator cuff. So many, I'm sure on this call, understand that there's many rotator cuff surgeries being done, about 500,000 in the US alone. And in patients over 50, the re-tear rates are very, very high, 20 to 40%, depending on the study that you look at. There's been this clinical trend to augment rotator cuff grafts. You've seen, the BioRes device, the BioBrace be very successful. You've seen the Rotation Medical, which Smith and Nephew acquired. So all of these are grafts to augment the rotator cuff. But what is really needed is a consistent and low impact way of securing that graft arthroscopically, especially medially. And what's interesting is 81% of the rotator cuff surgeries that are performed are done by the exact same surgeons that we're already calling on in meniscus. So our new indication for this technology for securing a rotator cuff graft will address this market. And I'm pleased to say we just submitted to the FDA a 510K last month, and all goes well. We have great advisors and a great team. We're pretty confident that we'll have that go through here very shortly. So we're a commercial company. We've been on the market. We have over 5,000 cases under our belt. Most of it is international, and our focus now is to grow the US. So we've got some ambitious goals to get to a 3 to 5% market share with a 3-point plan. It's distributor engagement. We're working through an independent network of distributors through regional management. We're going to focus very heavily on medical education, coming along with this trend towards meniscus repair and the proper way to use our device and then to advance some of these techniques. And then finally, important rep training. Gaining our US FDA clearance, of course, is a goal, and then continue our international sales growth, which has been strong. Good progress last year. We just finished up, so we've got a new team. We turned over about 2/3 of our US distribution. Again, we were looking for that engagement with US distribution, so we feel like we've kind of cleared the decks and we're off to the races with a good engaged team. Some new European contracts, and again, we surpassed our 5,000 case mark. We talked about the SuperBall rotator cuff, which has just been over the wall to the FDA. And then just last week, we announced the first closing of our Series A. It continues to remain open, and we'll continue to put some funds. But it was great to have support from a company called Verona Capital that took the lead, and many of our investors participated, and it's given us some good fuel for 2025. Since this is an innovation and potential investment call, just give you some of the details. We're raising up to 5. Our lead investors committing 2 of this, and some of our existing investors have also contributed. It's a very attractive Series A preferred. I'd be happy to get into details of terms, et cetera, on more of a breakout or one-on-one. Happy to contact me. And it's again to focus on these 3 areas of growing the business: sales and marketing in the US, our rotator cuff clearance, and our international growth. And that's it. So we have a best-in-class solution in a high-growth market in meniscus repair. Our management team has been around in orthopedics, and we know M&A, and the market's validated with many cases over 5,000. New rotator cuff will increase our opportunity. We're not a startup. We've been around since 2014. Most of that is developing the product in early cases, and it's very much de-risked. So we've got multiple drivers for our growth. And that about covers it. So I think I'll end there and turn it over to the team. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jamal.
Yeah.
Great presentation. Panelists, questions?
So I'll jump in. So Jamal, yeah, great presentation, very concise. Could you share kind of the distribution of business US to OUS currently? And
yes,
and also as a follow-on, what your goal is in terms of revenue ramp?
Yeah. So our OUS sales are about half, a little bit more than half of versus our US sales on a revenue basis, and a bit more than that on a case basis, because internationally we sell through restocking distributors, so you get about half the ASP roughly. Our revenue targets is we're looking to get to, again, the 3 to 5% market share in the United States will equate to about 5 to 8 million, I'd say over the next 2017-ish timeframe. And we continue to, now we won't have that same mix. That's going to be a driver of higher sales in the US versus OUS, just because we think there's so much more opportunity here. So that should get us to around a 10 million-ish mark in that time frame, the 2017 plus.
2017?
2027.
Add 10 years to that. 2027. Okay. Yes, thank you. I'm in a time warp.
Back to the future.
Let's don't go back.
Right. 2020. Yeah, it feels. I'm probably still going to say 2024 several times here too.
Oh, no problem.
You mind if I ask Jamal? Great presentation, thank you. So a couple questions around strategy, but importantly about what are you seeing are your growth rates in U.S. cases? I think you're saying that's where you want to focus.
Right.
I think we'd all agree that about 65% of all orthopedic procedures in the world are completed in the United States. So how is your growth rate, which obviously kind of correlates to adoption, taking place?
Right. So we had kind of an interesting start. We started 2020 right in the middle of COVID, and it was quite challenging for us in learning and managing it from outside the U.S. So we had a bit of a reset, I'd say, in 2022, and since then it's been, I guess growth rate on next to zero is almost infinite. But we've been seeing up and down, doubling and so forth within the group. But I'd say more importantly is what we're looking for this year is we're looking to at least triple our business in the United States. And we've seen sparks of that, I think, in 2024. What's a little bit hard is, again, I've been here about 6 months and we've completely reorganized the distribution. So in market by market basis, we're seeing 20%, 50%, 100%, growth where we have established business. In other markets, we're kind of starting from zero. So it kind of bounces in between those. So I'd say the thing that we're really focused on is tripling our business this year.
Yeah, that's great. I was curious because I think at this point in time, the standard of care being meniscectomy and at 80%, I'm sure your educational program and focus is going to be around changing habit, right? So if you have the evidence that the product actually works in the way that makes the surgeon user experience better and creates better outcomes, how do you focus and where do you focus on your educational strategy focus?
Right. No, thanks, Chance. That's a really good observation. So here's the cool thing is it's not us talking about the shift from meniscectomy to repair. It's at OSET. It's at, the sports medicine meetings. And it's not just our KOLs. It's all the competitive company KOLs. Everybody is getting behind. And you've seen this in industry before, say with total ankle or total shoulder, where a mindset shift is happening, driven at the conferences and driven by the KOLs. Having said that, we think medical education is critically important, not so much to convince the switch, because there's so much opportunity right now with even doctors that are doing it. It's about a different technique. So while ours is not any more intellectually difficult than any others, because we do it slightly differently, we're mimicking an inside-out technique with anatomic tensioning. You have to do it in a certain way. And so we have to change the muscle memory in many of the surgeons that do it one way. And you have the disadvantage if you do it the old way of pulling on literally you pull on a suture and you're pulling that implant right back through the center of the joint. So we say, instead of going step 1, 2, 3, let's go step 1, 3, 2. Implant both sides, hold it there, tension it while it's still there, reduce the tear, then lock it and pull it out. As simple as that sound, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal to change muscle memory. Yeah. So that's where we want to focus on first. And then secondly, not only that, but there's all sorts of new techniques. Do you do a hay bale? Do you do a hashtag technique? These are all different types of suture techniques. And biologics is another area that's coming in. So there's a lot of cool things we can do, not to convince doctors to change meniscectomy to repair, because that's happening, but how is the right way to do it? What's the best in class way to do it with this novel technique?
So I have two quick questions.
I want a question, Drew.
One is, I'm saving the best for last, Chris. That's you. The first question is the learning curve. Obviously, it's a different, it's as you just described. So what's the learning curve for someone who's been used to doing it the other way around?
5 cases minimum. So we say 5 to 10. And in fact, we have, if I have any of my sales team listening, I want to reinforce, we have an incentive is to saying, we're not looking for 100 docs to do 2 cases. We're looking for, 20 doctors to do 10 cases. And so we've put some incentives we call it the 1, 5, 10, first case, 5th case, 10 case. Let's stay with that surgeon. Let's really focus on that first 5 to 10 cases and let's get that muscle memory down.
So the next question is about data. What kind of data do you have on this product and what kind of outcomes have you shown? And is there anything that's been published so far?
Yes. So we have a CE mark. So we do require annual post-market surveillance. We've collected a number of that. We've shown that in various presentations. We have 6-month MRI with 9-month results. Very, very excellent results on the Lysham scores, getting to near 100 on a 100-point scale. So that's been very good. Published, Dr. Alan Barber in Plano, Texas, very well-known orthopedist in biomechanics, did a head-to-head of us versus gold standard inside-out technique versus 2 competitive products. And ours came out, two of the market leaders. Ours came out to be biomechanically superior to all of them. We had 100% survival of the cyclic test versus less than 70-ish% of the other ones. and ours is the only one with 100% deployment. The other devices, they only got about half of theirs to work. And this is an independent head-to-head biomechanics with Dr. Barber. So it kind of reinforces what we're seeing, which is there is a problem in some of these devices in terms of the consistency, and that ours, again, when done properly with the right education, it's got a very high reliability rate and superior biomechanics. And that was just published last year.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Just real quick, because I know we're on time, but the question I had was specific to the roles of your commercial team as it relates to those that you've been bringing on board and probably future as well with the funds that are being raised. Is it a VP of sales? Is it regional managers? Is it direct reps? And to what level of quantity?
Right. So we just kind of got our basic sales team in place. We have a VP of sales and we have 2 regionals. We have an East and a West, both with extensive sports medicine experience. I'm here in New York City. That's the curtains behind me is Times Square. So meeting with our East Coast and just did some surgeries actually over at NYU. It was great. And we have right now about 20 independent distributors. We're going to augment that a little bit, but our goal is not to get much bigger than that. So we're going to focus and go deep in cities. These are all seasoned regional directors that understand sports medicine. They understand orthopedics, and they're there to be a partner and enabler for the distributors. Heavily into training, clinically competent, will be there for the first cases and really just to help the team along to get that sustainable business. Depending on funds, we'll probably expand that a bit, but we're at this time, we don't have a direct sales strategy, although we may augment in a few areas with some sharing opportunities or even some specialists. But right now we're working through engaging with distributors. And maybe tied to that, I see there's a chat question about how we going to grow, 3X. It's really a 3-point plan. Number 1 is distributor engagement. Rewards for quotas, incentives for getting things done. What can we do for you? What can you do for us? Labs, dinners, etc. How can we get that education going? The second piece is medical education. We're trying to schedule as many med ed labs as we can to expand the education. And then third is rep training is so much important. It's not just about features and benefits of the device. It's being that expert in the OR. If you have a competent and confident rep in the operating room, you're going to have a great surgeon experience. If you don't, you're going to have the opposite.
That's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Jamal. Really appreciate you coming on board. And
of course, I look forward to my colleagues here in the other presentation.
Yeah, great. All right, we'll move on to Julius at Sterile Processing Express. Julius, let me pull up the presentation here.
Well, thank you very much. Just making sure everyone can hear me.
We got you loud and clear.
Okay. Well, SPDx is what we do is we do sterile processing, and we are a logistics and supply chain company that has a specialization in sterilization of medical trays. And while that can be any type of medical tray used in the human body, whether it be a cadaver, tissue, or a live surgery, ultimately we specialize, and one of the reasons we've targeted is we go after orthopedic trays. And the reason for that is when you look at this highly engineered model, we're designed for these multiple tray units. And as you look at end-to-end sterilization and tray customization for physicians, this becomes very, very specialized. Everybody wants something a little bit different. There's a basic tool set, but then you have to drive towards having these doctor preference items. And we collect those preference cards as we go through, and we sterilize for an entire market. So we're totally agnostic as to point of care. We're agnostic as to whose implant is being put in the human body. And we're agnostic as to, with all regards, as to whether it's an outpatient department, a hospital, or an ASC. So basically looking at our leadership team, my specialty is in scaling businesses. I've been in the supply chain business now for 38 years. putting footprint all over the globe and scaling businesses very, very rapidly. I've been involved with 5 exits over the course of that period and had a very healthy career in buying, selling, and scaling logistics companies and supply chain companies. Jeff Erdley, our Chief Commercial Officer, has 20 plus years in scaling as well. He has a background in orthopedics, including working with a lot of the distributors, so he has that expertise in the orthopedics market. Brad Shaning has a very, very diverse background in startups and in governance from a financial perspective, and he's our VP of Finance and eventually will move to our CFO role. And Candy Shuklin is our head of clinical operations, and she is a sterilization expert, military trained. So why is this important? If you look at the aging population, the number of total joints that are being done are growing rapidly. And this is the number one procedure that's moving out from the hospital to the ASC level locations. And with the number of these, the first chart is impressive from the standpoint of the number of total joints being done. But the second one is really where our bread and butter is. And that is, why would you take a healthy patient to a hospital where various things are being treated when you can take them to an outpatient center, do a total joint, and have them go home the same day? Okay, it's good for the patient. It's good for the surgeon. And it just makes a lot more sense to not put them in an environment where they could get a hospital-acquired infection. And if you look at some of the studies out there, they'll tell you that there's a 6 times less chance of getting an HA out of an ASC than there is out of a hospital. So basically, looking at the problem and the constraints today, the first picture here is the number of trays that go into a total joint. Now, imagine an ASC with a couple of operating rooms, and the second picture, that small corner, would be what their sterilization capacity would look like. Okay, it's tiny. And so you're trying to store all these trays. If you're doing 20 or 30 procedures over a couple of days, and there's 6 to 14 of these trays, these surgical trays in there, you don't have room to move. So this becomes a huge problem. And what we do is we deliver it prior to the surgery. We take it out after the surgery. We take it back to our facility. We sterilize it, and we put it in inventory, and it sits there until it's ready to be used again. So the third picture on this particular screen is how trays are delivered into the surgery centers today. So you have multiple millions of dollars worth of surgical trays that are coming in either as what they call trunk stock or on the back of an open pickup like this, to be sterilized to use for a procedure. Well, we bring them in temperature-controlled conveyances, in surgical carts. Everything is sterilized when it arrives at the facility. And then the last picture here is the number of points of care. As it grows exponentially, okay, the OEMs, the total joint implant manufacturers, have to put so much more equipment into the system in order to be able to get the trays where they need them. We alleviate that by moving these things 4 to 5 times faster than it would be done under today's system. As I said before, this is a highly engineered process flow. Each one of our facilities is standardized. They're all going to be 8 to 12,000 square feet. No matter where it is in the country, it's going to look just like what's in this picture. It's going to be kind of like putting in a Wendy's. We'll sterilize for an entire market, but everything inside the facility will look exactly alike. It'll be the same equipment, the same systems, so I can take people from one facility to another facility and they would be walking into something they're very familiar with. And that consistency is what's going to give us the efficiency necessary to drive the profit margins we're looking for in these markets. So basically, one of the keys to understand here is this is not a value shift. This is value creation. Everybody in the equation, every stakeholder wins. The ASCs and the hospitals get to do more surgeries. The OEMs have a reduced number of trays that they have to put into a market, and they get increased utilization so they can sell more implants with the same equipment. And the patients get a reduced risk of infection, and they get to go home after the procedure. So everybody in the equation wins.
Mm-hmm.
In the Phoenix market, we have 28 ASCs contracted within 2 hours of our facility, which is the requirement to get the instruments back to decontam. We have not shut down a single case, and there are cases canceled all the time at these ASCs due to sterilization failures, due to sterilizers going out, due to people not showing up for work. And since we've been actively working with our customers in January, we have not shut down a single case, and we're quite proud of that. We currently have 15 OEMs are storing trays with us in our Phoenix facility, and that's our first facility. So the OEMs are really grasping onto this, saying, okay, I'd rather have the chain of custody of having them in your facility rather than in my representative's garage or in a shipping container somewhere and going to pick them up. So if you look at what we've done, and a perfect example would be, we're going to use our first customer, which was the Gateway Service Center for Banner Health in Phoenix, Arizona. They were doing 20 total joint procedures a month. They're now doing 60. They brought on 2 new doctors. That would have been impossible to do without our capacity in the marketplace. So this has actually grown for us into a relationship, and we're having a discussion right now with Atlas, which manages for Banner Health a lot of and owns part of these surgery centers. And they're talking to us about going potentially to the Pac Northwest and up to Michigan for some of their other relationships. So if you look at the competitive landscape, there's nobody that does everything that we do. Okay, there's people, and companies out there that do a part of what we do, and they do things very well, but nobody has put the whole model together to say, driving this agnostic capability into the marketplace and being able to move these trays fluidly through that market. No one else is doing that. We can meet every IFU of every OEM manufacturer out there. And an IFU is the instructions for use. It basically says how you have to sterilize this equipment. Most ASCs can't even sterilize to meet the IFU. Revenue models for our business are relatively simple. We have the daily total joint service for an ASC. We come pick up your trays, we take them back, we put them in sterile storage. When you need them, we bring them back to you, or the OEM gives you loaner trays. We deliver them in the day before the surgery. For a hospital, we have a business continuity plan, and we say, all right, your sterilizers go down in the middle of the night, or for example, your people don't show up for work, you have a problem. We will sell you a block of time and you will pay us on a monthly basis. We can put on a second shift at a moment's notice and actually save your surgery schedule or your trauma cases. And then the third one is from the standpoint of a recurring use is a hospital calls us and says, we need to take our sterilization down so that we can revamp our equipment. And we set up a time frame in which we'll sterilize for them so that they can maintain the health care for their patients. So SPDx is a high gross margin business, greater than 30%. We don't own any inventory. The responsibility for the surgical trays remains with the OEMs. We have a very sticky revenue model, and once a ASC starts using us, they don't want to go back to what they're doing. And we're currently on a run rate of in excess of 800K based on 90 plus events. If you look at our December, we hit 127 events, and we just added a new customer called Pinnacle Transplant Technologies. And that's going to double the number of events starting in January that we do on a monthly basis. So we'll be over 200. An event for us is, think of it this way, that 8 to 14 trays I was talking about, that is a surgery. That is an event for us. So we will have over 200 surgeries we will assist in and move trays for in the month of January. Again, our quality metrics, hospitals and ASCs can achieve 15% sterility failures. We average 1 to 2, in a bad month because our systems are so redundant. Like I said, we haven't shut down a single surgery. We have not had a single sterility event reach one of our customers. Every single one of them have been caught within our facility. We are seeking $10 million in our Series A, which is active right now, which is going to build out our Dallas facility. Dallas, the lease has been taken down. We have our permits and our design work is done. It will look just like Phoenix, minor differences. We will expand Phoenix. We're currently equipped right now to handle about 400 events per month in Phoenix. We're going to double that and go to over 1,000 by adding the second bank of sterilizers. And then we'll fund business operations and do a build out with the remaining part of the 10 million that we're seeking. Forward outlook in 5 years is to have 12 of these facilities, all of them operating at greater than 30% margin. The 13 million in operating profit and 1 million in net profit. So if you look at the unit economics of one of our facilities, it's $4 to $5 million depending on the market to put the facility in. 9 months to get it constructed, and 9 months later, it's cash flow positive. That's it. Questions?
Chris, you want to go first?
Yes, please. Hey, excellent job, Julius. That was really good. And I tell you, as I look at this, man, part of your ROI to these hospitals should be just go ahead and shut down your father's SPD. We got you. I mean, in my opinion, that's a big deal. And I don't know if that's the trend you're seeking necessarily, but if you really do perfect this model the way you're doing right now, is that something in your mindset that it's going to have that much influence? Because you know as well as I do, the hospital SPD is the joke of the industry.
It is. It's a huge issue for the hospitals and keeping them staffed because, I mean, as you know, these people work in a basement. They don't even have windows, and that's where the SPDs are in these hospitals. And it's really kind of a horrible environment, and they're just not they don't show up on the food chain for the hospital. So they don't show up for work, and it creates a huge issue. So we do talk to the hospitals about that. We have bright, airy factories with windows. People can see outside. And every time I put a requisition out for a sterile tech in Phoenix, I get over 100 job applicants, and they're from every hospital and ASC in the area because they don't want to work there. They want to work for us. So this is the future. And ultimately, we're starting with the ASCs. We're getting traction there. And the hospitals are looking at us saying, wait a minute, we need a business continuity plan. And trying to slam in a Steris trailer at $500,000, okay, of install cost is not in the parking lot is not a good idea if this brick and mortar already exists in the market.
Correct. And I think one of the things, you know, you're able to actually turn reps back into hunter-gatherers and not tray schleppers, which is another huge thing I see with this, which is massive. The strategics should love you to death. So the question I've got is, if you ever decided to be acquired, because I see this as a definitive not only revenue model, but also franchise model, to your point, I could see people owning these under your banner as a headquarters. Do you see an exit, or is that the intent long term? What's going through your mind in that regard? I know it's early, but
yeah, there's three different exit strategies that we've considered as a part of this business. The first one is the ASPs, the Soteras, the Sterises. Okay, the people that come in and say, all right, they really do have a better mousetrap. They're agnostic and they're driving this in the marketplace. We need to have a piece of this. The second one is when you start to look at the Becton Dickinsons, the large conglomerates that look at this and say, hey, this has to be part of our portfolio because we sterilize within of our company. So there's a component of the company for that. And the last one is the distributors. When you look at the McKessons, the Cardinals, and the Owens and Miners, and they say, wait a minute, this fits into our core. We're a manufacturer. We can sterilize as a service. We're already going there and we're dropping off supplies. We can drop off sterilized trays as well. So we have multiple exit avenues, and we've thought about all of those.
Okay, excellent. That's good. Last question is relative to the liability that you take on. What does that look like? Right? I mean, you're taking that on away from a rep that needs to have trays there at XYZ time. You're taking on the sterility perfection, and potentially taking it even out of the hospital in and of itself, potentially long term. Is there a level of liability? Is there anything that keeps you up at night relative to that?
There is not. First and foremost, there's a reason an attorney won't take an HAI case. Because, unless there's 7 or 8 people that have been infected or there's a known sterility event, okay, it's almost impossible to prove where it came from because we're all exposed to this stuff every single day. Okay,
True.
Our systems are triple redundant, so we know going out the door that we have the sterility testing and everything on our side from the standpoint of being able to back ourselves up. So, if it gets holes in the tray or they take it into the room and that happens at the ASC, obviously we can't control that. But our liability from the standpoint of the trays, we don't take liability for the trays. Okay, even when they're in our sterile storage, which is not a problem for the OEMs because they don't have insurance on them with the reps sitting in their garage or in a storage container today.
True.
So they don't balk. They just love the fact that we actually have them and we know where they're at all times. So there's not a lot of liability associated with this business. There really isn't. And now if we were doing gamma or ETO, yes, huge liability. That's the reason we only do steam.
Got it. That's super helpful. This is a better model than AAA, I think.
So Julius, really nice presentation. I have 2 questions. One is, what is the cost per tray that you charge? How does that relative to what a hospital just, has to pay in terms of their fully burdened cost? And the other question is, you mentioned on one of your slides that it reduces the risk of infection. Do you have any data that supports that claim?
What we have is our sterility test compared to their sterility tests. Okay, so when I say a hospital can achieve a 15% failure rate, we achieve 1 to 2 events per month. But as far as we have not done any studies, and nor I don't think we're capable of doing studies that say that, okay, if you use SPDx, your infection rate would drop. For the same reason that we say that everything that goes out of our facility until proven otherwise is sterile. Okay, we really wouldn't want to open that Pandora's box. What we would tell them is that patient safety is our chief priority and that everything that goes out will be 100% sterile before it leaves the facility. And we would challenge anyone to say that it's not. So now, as far as the cost per tray goes, we're about equivalent because we have a transportation component to what it is. And if you look at across the hospital industry, people will say it's $80 to $100 per tray, depending on what kind of a tray it is what your cost to sterilize is. Ours is below that, but then we have a transportation component to get it back. So we can get them to on par where they're at today, but we get rid of all the inefficiencies that they have because we're running a factory. If one of our sterilizers goes down, we have 6, 7 more. If our people don't show up, we've got 30 techs working in the building in a fully functional SPDx. So we don't have the problems that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And the risk of their surgery schedules being shut down. And we had a perfect example. We actually have an investor was with us that was with Ortho Arizona, and we got a phone call. We're obviously in the Phoenix market with you, and it's what opened our USPI contract. He called us, and they had 22 surgeries they were going to have to cancel over the next 2 days. We picked that stuff up at 4 o'clock in the evening, worked all night long, and delivered it back to them at 7 a.m. They didn't cancel a single surgery. This is the power of SPDx in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your value proposition truly is the efficiency gain, not so much the decrease of cost.
Correct. It's the efficiency gain and the fact that if you do 20 surgeries today and your SPD is your constraint, hire 3 more doctors if you have the operating rooms for it, and you can do 80 a month. Because we will completely eliminate that constraint and we'll turn the equipment 4 to 5 times faster.
Yeah, I think the industry has really seen an optimization of the ASC environment. Obviously procedures are going there, but I would probably think that everybody would agree that the majority of those procedures are being, narrowed into a particular bucket, making sure that it's the right patient optimization, the right reimbursement optimization, the right timing. And so what you're providing to them is this efficiency gain and outsourcing, in a sense, of a major component to the chain of command, and you're removing the chain of custody of not giving them any issues with IFUs and things. My question would be more about how you're scaling the business, Julius. If you have 28 contracted entities right now per your location in Phoenix, what percentage of full capacity does that entail? Is that 30%? Is it 50%?
So right now, being a brand new business in a nascent space, we are running at 127, I said, and again, to be 200 at the end of January. That's only about 25%, 20 to 25% of our total capacity. So we have 28 surgery centers contracted that can use us, but a lot of them have functioning SPDs right now. And for example, 22 of those sit under the Atlas umbrella. And as their sterilizers reach end of life, they're going to send more and more of that equipment into us. But getting them to just shut down their existing sterilizers and terminate their people is not a good business model for them.
Right.
So like everything is changing, decision making and process and stuff. What from your perspective, this model's been tried before. What is it that changes this time from your perspective that actually drives adoption of this outsourcing?
Well, that's the beautiful thing. You have to be agnostic. And it does not work any other way. And I'll tell you this, Bon Secours put in a 40,000 square foot external SPD up in Richmond. Okay, it runs at 21% utilization because it says Bon Secours on the outside of it. Zimmer put one in Chicago. It says Zimmer on the outside of it. And Stryker's not going to send their instruments there to be sterilized. Okay, yep. DePue's not going to send their instruments there to be sterilized. If Bon Secours puts one in, Ortho Virginia is not going to send their instruments in there to be sterilized because they're competing with Bon Secours for these procedures.
Yeah.
Us, with a physical and an informational firewall as a third-party logistics company with sterilization, they will send those trays into us all day, every day, because they know that we can help them grow market share without giving away the keys to their cookie jar.
That's awesome. Well, Julius, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Let's move on to our final presentation of the day with Tom at Native Orthopaedics.
All right. Well, great. Excited to be here. My name is Tom GAMACHE. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Native Orthopaedics. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about Native. It's a fast-growing company that was founded just in 2024. We have momentum and velocity to be revenue generating this year in 2025. My co-founder is Dr. Chris Anderson. He's a sports medicine surgeon, but he's also, interesting, a former 3-time world record holder fly fisherman. And when he and I came together, our goal was to empower surgeons to restore native anatomy. In my opinion, the sports medicine market is starving for innovation and ripe for a simple but elegant solution that a surgeon can easily adapt to precisely tension and retension tissue anywhere without changing their practice. And the key word there is simple. Maybe some of you on this call have a fantasy football player that never returned to their pre-injury performance. Maybe some of you wear dress shoes and you have to double knot your shoelaces. The reason for that is not suck. And these two very important injuries, ACL and meniscus tears, are often repaired hundreds of times a day, thousands of times per day in ORs around the world by tying knots. You heard a lot of this information from previous companies in this platform and prior meetings, and I'm going to reinforce some of this information here today. I'm going to go a little bit deeper specifically on meniscal roots and what happens when left untreated. Those patients are very likely to progress to needing a total knee replacement. 1950s reconstruction was the gold standard. Ultimately, with data and following those patients, poor performance. And today, like I said, surgeons are trying to repair torn tissue and approximate it and tension it appropriately, precise to that patient, by tying knots. The problem with that is we have poor data. When you look at all the data that's out there in the literature, the Kirch study, the Fawcett study, I'll specifically talk about meniscus roots. 52% of debridements end up with a total knee replacement. Patients that progress to getting a total knee, 1 in 5 are going to be dissatisfied with their outcome. So we know that there's a better way. We dug a deep look inside of specifically how surgeons that are on the tip of the spear addressing these injuries today, how they're addressing it. And they're passing sutures through, tying knots. Knot tying is very challenging, cognitively demanding from surgeon to surgeon. And what's really interesting when you look at a number of the studies, you look at that graphic in the middle, specifically with one cycle of the knee, after the surgeon thinks that they've dialed in the tension specific for that patient, one cycle of the knee, they can measure up to 2 millimeters of creep. And we know that anywhere close to 2 or 3 millimeters leads to clinical failure, that OA progress, and that patient's going to need a total knee. So there's a better way to do this. We'll play this video here. I don't know if that video is going to play for us, TJ. Can you hover over it? If it's not going to play, that's fine. We can skip the slide.
Skip it.
All right. So what I'll do here is I'll introduce Native Orthopaedics, and this is the powered by Dragonfly. So we're going to brand our technology and our platform Dragonfly. There's a reason for that. It's the only soft tissue repair system in the world that's offering a knotless fixation system that's small enough for meniscal repair, but also strong enough for ACL. And these are just two of the market opportunities that we're initially going after. We have some great data from our testing to show how it stacks up versus some market-leading devices like Tightrope and other devices that are well known from the big strategics. We're really encouraged by our testing that we've put together in our FDA submission. So the beauty of how this works is you just simply bring the suture chain through in this example, a titanium button. You wrap it over the titanium button, click it into place, and then you can seamlessly pull on the tail, the Dragonfly tail. And that allows you to dial in the tension specific to that patient. While you're there intraoperatively, you cycle the patient. You'll see some tissue laxity. And if you had a knotted construct, you wouldn't be able to repair that. You've married it. And if you were unhappy with the construct, you have to make a decision as a surgeon. Leave it and hope that patient heals, or you're not happy with it so much that you need to redo the construct. Blows up the whole OR schedule. You have to redo it. Cut it out, start over. That's the beauty of our system, is think of it like a suture zip tie. Right there in the OR, you can dial in that tissue tension specific for that injury and for that patient. So we have another video here. This is a great demo that shows our knotted construct versus a standard construct. Looks like it's not going to play. Sorry about that. If anyone's interested in seeing it, follow up with me after. We can talk about it. So everyone knows the sports medicine market, second largest across the orthopedic space. We're playing in a very attractive space, right? In the knee, it's a large space, and we have very conservative financial projections for our year one revenue model that we feel very obtainable. Based on early conversations with surgeons in the commercial side, we think we're going to blow that out of the water. So we've profiled our customer base, ideal customers, feeling really comfortable about getting up to 30 surgeons. In fact, we're already at that, and we're just early on here in 2025. And that's our 2026 plan. We think we're going to exceed that pretty quickly. We're looking for folks that are very familiar with meniscal roots and ACLs. This is their target space, same customer pattern. They get familiar with the technology. Our first go-to-market is going to be the meniscal root solution, and then we're going to go after ACL and a whole host of other tissue tensioning opportunities. Got some great quotes here from some well-known surgeons. One is Dr. Nick Koligas. He's out in California. He's well known on social media as the meniscus whisperer. He's very excited about our technology. We also have a screenshot from my phone. I had a meeting at a Starbucks here in Massachusetts when one of the Houston Texans team doctor was in town. When they were playing against the Patriots, we ended up meeting the day before the game. He went back after that Sunday game and sent me this screenshot. So that's very consistent with every surgeon that we put this technology in front of. They're just floored with how amazing and how simple it is. They don't have to change their practice. There's really no learning curve or market development activities that we have to invest in because it fits right into their existing workflow. And all the instrumentation that we've designed around the system accommodates that. We actually have some really nice delighters on our instrumentation side. So here's our 5-year revenue model. Like I said, this has been vetted by a number of folks. We're feeling really good about our ramp here, and especially all of the additional indications and the upside of that just in the sports medicine space. And there's other areas across orthopedics and across surgery that we could flex into, but our focus right now, laser focused on knee sports medicine. That's what we're going after. It's really strong momentum, as I mentioned. Started the company in 2024. We did our first 510K submission just last month before the holidays. That puts us on track for hopefully some good news the tail end of Q1, early Q2, and then we'll be getting into our first cases and rolling out, like I said, with our Dragonfly meniscal root repair offering. Because it's such a fast-growing space and there's really no good technology solutions that are on the market, we feel like, I'll use the words Trojan horse. That's really our Trojan horse to get it into the surgeon's hands. And then once they get their hands on it, they immediately start thinking about all of the other places that they could use this technology: biceps, syndesmosis, AC joint, Achilles, MPFL, ACL. It's a big market opportunity upside. So here's the core team. We have a whole host of team members beyond this that's supporting us with all the necessary functions. We've got some deep experiences. I think from an investor perspective, folks on the phone here are probably aware of some of these exits, very comparable exits in the space in the recently 250 range, 300 range. Here's our launch plan. We're looking to be at AAOS. Not sure if we'll have FDA clearance on time, but we will be present. If anyone on the call has interest in learning more about the technology, swing by the booth. We can walk you through it. Then we're going to go out to AOSSM and also OSET, be present at those events for our first time. And hopefully by then, we've got a couple of other additional indications that have cleared. We are fast moving. We're feeling good about getting some additional clearances here in 2025. All of that helps us actually beat our projections from our revenue model. So from an investment perspective, we are rounding out our seed round. It was a $3 million raise. We're just under that with actual money into the account. I have a number of verbal soft commits, people that have been circling. We kind of lost a little bit of traction around the holidays. We'll see if some of those come through. If anyone's interested in trying to get in the current round before I close it, happy to have those conversations. But really today is about, with FDA clearance, we're going to start building relationships and raise up to $8 million. Don't necessarily need a full $8 million. We'll do it in a couple of rounds or closing, smaller chunks, and we'll do a rolling closing as necessary. We have actually 12 issued patents. This journey started with Dr. Anderson back in 2016. He started his IP portfolio then. 12 issued patents. We have global coverage and 30 more pending. That's where all the investment went to today to get us this fast as far as we've come. And really the money that we take into the company right now, we're going to be revenue generating, but what we can do with any outside investment is just accelerate our commercial ramp. So this is a great image. I wanted to leave this with you before I close. It's a quote from Dyson. He made 5,127 prototypes of his vacuum. before he got it right. That means it was 5,126 failures. And he learned from each one. And this is a powerful image because this is actually a board in Dr. Anderson's, what was his workshop, from all the prototypes that he developed over the years. Just a ton of grit and passion about solving this problem with all the line splicing technology that he had learned as being a fly fisherman, bringing it into the sports medicine space and truly just coming up with a very, very disruptive technology that we think is going to take the sports medicine market by storm. So with that, I'll close. My name is Tom GAMACHE. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll share my info with anyone afterwards. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Excellent.
Opening up to questions.
Tom, I would actually be interested in, first and foremost, well, thank you for the presentation. I appreciated listening, and obviously it's very passionate for you and your co-founder. And I would say, I guess, the patent estate right now, you all focused on protection globally in this scenario. And then, getting the, am I correct in saying you were trying to seek 28 or 29 surgeons here? Is that before or after from the 10K clearance?
After 510K clearance. So what we're doing now is we're demonstrating the technology to surgeons, right? And letting them know that we're going to be coming to the market. We're building our wait list of folks that have struggles with the technology that's on the market today and are interested in learning about something that would make their surgical lives easier. Right. So that wait list, our conservative goal was, 29, 30 surgeons. We've already exceeded that just in the last 2-3 months because we show a couple of surgeons at large teaching institutions like HSS, NYU, and other places, and it goes viral. And we get access to, some of those large hospital systems.
How many are going
later towards the year? Sorry, Chris. So your revenue is kind of coming later towards the year after you get 510K clearance, put the sets into the field, do the education, get the contract and reimbursement, and then cases.
Yeah, there'll be some lag there, Chance, right? After we get clearance, then we have to, in some systems, navigate the value analysis committees. So that's, yeah.
Understood.
I was just going to ask real quick, Tom, as it relates to what's your plan from an educational standpoint, not only on labs and things of that nature, but additional educational webinars so that people will be drawn to understanding the difference in the technology versus what presently exists?
Yeah, that's a great point, right? So it's going to be a mix of physical prototypes showing them the challenges. They're well aware of the challenges with the technologies that are out there, but creating some meaningful demos, physical, but also some virtual assets that we can share with them. And then it'll be also like a regional approach, right? Depending on which regions we want to target and penetrate, there'll be in-person opportunities to bring those interested surgeons together. Society meetings is just one thing, right? But there's also some regional opportunities. And we've had unsolicited a number of distributors that have been in the sports medicine space all of their careers and are equally as excited about this, carrying this line, approach us, and partnership with them and some of their surgeons in their trusted network. We think we could get penetration and target markets pretty quickly.
Have you already had strategics sort of kind of poking around?
Yes. Under NDA with at least 2, potentially 3 shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, nice presentation. Can you share some of the data around some of your mechanical testing, such as pull-out and residual displacement?
Yeah, so cyclic displacement on something like a tightrope, which is a product that's been around for almost 30 years, right? It's more than 25 years. That's a simple finger trap mechanism. And we've gone head-to-head versus tightrope, for example, and we can show that we're far superior to tightrope. It's a simple finger trap. Our technology, in its very basic description is think of it as double stuffing multiple layers of 4 sutures together. So a tightrope finger trap mechanism is generally about 25 millimeters run-on suture, and ours is much shorter. It's only 10 millimeters because we're double stuffing it, and it's all in the outer shell. So we are super strong, much smaller profile than something like a tightrope. From our FDA submission, we grabbed some very well-known products from Arthrex, Swivel Lock, and some others that we used as our predicate and went head-to-head versus those. And that was by design because I just want people to know, like, this, we're not hiding anything, right? This is actually very meaningful innovation, and it performs well. And it makes me excited as, being part of the company and being part of the founding of it, and getting behind it with all of my being.
Can you share any details? Thank you for that. Relative to kind of the vehicle that you're using to raise this money?
So the first round was a safe, right? But then we'll do a convertible note. Depending on the investor, we'll see what they're interested in. If they're interested in another vehicle, and depending on the terms, open for negotiation. It's going to depend on the partner.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tom, what's the IP on primarily?
So we have coverage on all of the implantation, but also we've got some good coverage on our instrumentation too, because it is differentiated. I'll just give you an example. The drill guide. There's a bunch of drill guides. Every company out there has a drill guide, but they all come in through the medial portal. And the problem with that, specific to meniscal root repairs, is the arm where the drill is going to come through the bone often blocks the view of that drill leaving the bone right at the root. So based on where the camera is, ours comes in through the lateral portal and allows you to pivot and swivel it over, and it completely changes the whole view. So now you can actually see where the drill point exits and make sure that you're passing the suture right where you need to, you're tensioning it down exactly where you need to. So we've got some IP on our instrumentation. Suture passer as well is unique. I didn't show that in our presentation today, but we're excited about the potential with that. We just had it in some large KOL surgeons' hands exactly a month ago, December 7th on a Saturday. They came into Fall River, Massachusetts from all over the country, and only did it based on their relationship with me. Didn't think that they were going to leave impressed, but they're happy that they came and now are big advocates.
Awesome. That's great.
Yep.
I got another question from the chat. Curious about the COGS, manufacturability, anything you can provide there?
Yeah, so in the sports medicine space, every strategic will tell you that they're generally happy with a platform GP being above 70%. I can tell you that we're well above that. Our manufacturing COGS is low, and based on the pricing that we can get, even in price-sensitive markets, we're feeling really good about being close to the upper 80s, low 90s from a GP. We're working with a supplier that is doing business with all of the large strategics today. So thinking about, I mapped this out far in advance, thinking about diligence from a strategic that is potentially interested in doing an acquisition. They're already doing business with the suppliers that I've selected. So we're feeling good about that not being an issue.
Great. Any other questions, Chris or Chance? Drew?
No, I think it's a very good presentation.
All right, one last question and then we'll wrap up. How'd you come up with the $40 million valuation?
Yeah, great question, right? So due to a number of experts on this call and across the industry, there's a couple methods that we leveraged to back into it and triangulate into it. And we landed on a discounted cash flow analysis, which was reviewed by a number of experts, and feeling really good about our evaluation with everything that we have for our offering and what our potential is.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, Tom. Great presentation. Thanks, Jamal. Thanks to Julius. Thank you to all our panelists for a great event today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Please reach out to any of the presenters if you have additional questions, or reach out to myself or Drew, and we can connect you. We're holding our next event February 5th. You can go ahead and RSVP for that. It's on our site live right now. Hope everyone has a great night. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, guys.
Thank you.
Great job.
Good evening.
Take care.